the benefits of having a written implementation plan up front. I think it's a tool for two things. It's a tool for collaboration and it's a tool for scaling.
CTOs will share the stories untold.
Welcome to another episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast. My name is Brad Hefta-Gaub, and this is my co-host, Scott Porad.
When Brad and I were first toying around with the idea of recording a podcast, we would just hop on the phone and record our conversations. Today's episode is one of those conversations all the way back from the summer of 2024. Enjoy! There's this one part of this kind of job, meaning the job of building software, which is I need to take a business thing that somebody wants. And when I say business, I use that word really fuzzy. I need to take an experience or capability or functionality that someone wants from me, and I need to turn that into code.
Yeah, totally. This is like, that's like job one. That's the hardest thing, right?
And I've always thought the people who are good at, and usually that means, okay, they're saying they want this, so I need to go change these places in this way. And I've always thought the people who are actually good at that little part, that little translation part, that was like the core soft talent for something, for being able to kind of lead groups of people. There are people who are better at understanding the technology and what it can do and how it works and how we could leverage it and things like that. And there are people maybe who are better at understanding, well, what is really the right solution to this problem. But being able to plug those two together and say, here's how we could make that happen, is like this funny soft skill, which I've always thought, like, nobody ever teaches this in any school, not MBA school, not engineering school, not anywhere.
Right.
But yet it's like, it's the Rosetta Stone. It's like the thing, it's like the thing we need in order to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I've often coached, engineers. I was like, look, that's what you want to get really good at. Because once you're at that point, then like you've got all sorts of choices in your career.
Totally.
Right? You want to go be a manager, do you want to be an architect, do you want to be a product manager? Like you can go all different directions once you figure out how to get good.
And how do you coach people into getting good at that?
I say this, good question. I have a phrase. I say, look, it starts with what I call an implementation plan. Some people call it a design doc, a technical design doc, a tech spec. I like the phrase implementation plan because I say, look, every engineer has an implementation plan when they start. At minimum, they have decided what file to open in their editor. Right?
Yep.
That might be the only plan they have, which is I'm going to open this thing up and start typing.
Right. But
to me, I say, like, if you can write down your plan of like, this is the plan for turning, so-and-so wants it so that cancellations can be automated. Yeah. So we don't have to have right now, a human in our customer service team has to approve every cancellation, right, and we want it to just be automatic. If it meets certain criteria, we want it to be automatic.
Right.
The ability to do that is one thing. What I think that the piece I coach is, can you write down for somebody else how to do that?
Right.
And it starts with, I think there's two very coarse skills that I advise. One is just write it down at the bullet point level. You don't have to write down the lines of code. Okay, you're going to have to go into the cancellation controller and like catch this event. And when you catch it, then that's bullet point one. And then bullet point two is once you catch it, then put a message on the queue. Or I don't know what the things are.
Right.
But can you just in sort of like plain English write down the things that someone will have to do? And then a companion to that is, there is a flow of the system right now. There's a flow chart. Can you draw the flow chart of how it is now? Imagine just doing this in the whiteboard. Here's the flow chart of how it is now in one color, imagine on the whiteboard, and then use a different color pen to draw how you want it to be, right? this comes back to the visual versus different types of learners there.
Yeah,
But like
totally.
for some people, it's better to write it. I'm a bullet point guy.
Yeah,
For some
totally.
people, it's better to
And there's some people that
draw.
you can ask them to draw a picture of it, and they'll be like, I cannot draw a picture of this. I can write it in words, but I can't draw a
Yeah.
picture. And you can give
Um,
me a picture, and I won't understand your picture, right?
right. I do think that bullet points is important because it allows for increasing or decreasing, however you want to say it, levels of abstraction.
Totally, totally.
Like at the high level, it's like I need to change the cancellation control. I need to change the
Okay,
user. Okay, I need to do two things. I need to change the user interface. And I need to change the cancellation controller.
right.
Okay, then what are the next
What are
level?
the next
And
two
you can
levels?
and
Right.
you're basically drilling all the way down to at the bottom of there is I need to write this function. It needs to have these characters on these lines with semicolons in these places. Right? I mean, you get all the way to the bottom.
Okay.
So to
So
me, that's the coaching I do right there. It's
I
like you
love
need to
it.
write the plan down.
I love it. Okay. Now, it's so funny that you just described this and you even called it an implementation plan, because literally this week at Stealth Startup, we had a meeting where as an engineering team, we're like, we're seeing this thing where we're not really evaluating people's solutions until it gets to the code review point, and we should try to front end that a little bit. So let's start doing these implementation plans. Okay. Number one, yeah, but right, like every engineer, every time you give them an idea, a process, a culture change, it's like, yeah, but what about this? And the what about is, but what if I need to investigate it first? And so I love your coaching, right? And how do you get people past but I actually don't have an implementation plan, where they say that. And I want to go, I want permission to go. And I think those people that react to I don't yet have a plan, I need to go type something, I need to go do a proof of concept, I need to, those are your kinesthetics.
Sure, that makes sense. And I would say to that person, well, you do that investigation, and that's the outcome of the plan. In fact, I would say most times, I was going to repeat what I said. Most times people do have to do some investigation. They might be able to say at a top level, like I just said, well, we probably have to change the UI and we'd probably have to change the cancellation controller. But beyond that, I need to go spend some time looking through the code to figure out how to do this, right? So, but sometimes it's like, I have no idea how we do that.
Well, and I think it could be that maybe that's and essentially what I said to them was the following: you have some idea. It's not fair to say you have no idea. Like, hey, it's a full stack application. Do you think this is going to happen in the client part of the code or in the server part of the code? Right. Oh, this is in the client part of the code. Okay. Right. And do you think this is in, the networking layer, or do you think it's in the user interface? Oh, yeah, it's actually not in either of those. It's in the business model portion. Okay.
Right.
Whatever.
And it's like some AI thing. So like you're going to have to go find some AI package to use, right? Because you're not going to write that on your own unless that's what Still Startup is doing. But like you're not going to write that on your own. So that's like a bullet point, which is there's going to be an AI part, and like we don't know what that is yet. But you're sort of like starting to, I think I refer to it as you're blocking it out, right? Yeah. And then the whole process of how a bill becomes a law, how an idea turns into code is you're just refining it more and more and more. And that initial part that you just talked about, hey, it's in the full stack app and it's in the business layer, like that's very, very coarse. But it can be a rough idea. Like, well,
right.
this is how
And
much time that'll take or whatever.
And I also think that there's versions of that you can then go have the conversation with other experts. Like even the simplest version of that, you're able to start the conversation. And the other experts might go, and they might say to you, no. That piece of business logic that you're talking about, that's actually in a microservice that's running back here. I can point you to that, Or they might be like, yes, you're totally on the right track. And I remember Janet worked on a feature in that like last quarter. So maybe go chat with her. She might have some insights into this.
Yeah, so now you're starting to, we're pivoting a little bit, but to the benefits of having a written implementation plan up front, which is, yeah, it's a tool for collaboration. I think it's a tool for two things. It's a tool for collaboration and it's a tool for scaling, because I can write it and then maybe someone can pick it up, or I can get other people involved with me. I wrote it, but now five of us are going to work on it together, and there's something there. And yeah, it avoids that problem you were talking about of the code review being the worst place to talk about. Oh, did you know Janet already did this?
Right.
Boy, that's
Well, so do
that's
you
uncomfortable.
remember, by the way, do you remember this when you and I worked together most recently at Health Company? There was a weird unintended consequence of a leveling document that really disrupted this very natural thing that we're saying we want to optimize for. And
I do not recall.
so what it was that in a leveling document that talked about the difference between a junior engineer, an engineer, and a senior engineer, it described the idea that senior engineers are able to write implementation plans, design documents, whatever you want to call them, with no critical feedback in them.
Ooh.
And so
Wait,
you can,
yeah,
right,
that's it's
right.
not
And so,
bellworthy. Not bellworthy.
right. It's not bellworthy. It's the exact opposite of bellworthy. And in fact, that created this culture where that meant that folks that wanted to be perceived as senior, they were more cloistered and they would squirrel themselves away in and try to create and write the perfect implementation before showing it to anybody.
Yeah, that's a terrible, terrible thing. No, I think a very common pattern I've seen is quite the opposite, where someone puts together an implementation plan that actually has multiple options in it and starts circulating amongst the team saying, like, here's some different ways we could do this. I'd like your feedback on this, right? And here's pros and cons I see of each way, and I don't quite know what to do, which I think is a much healthier pattern and frankly
I
shows more seniority than the opposite.
Totally. I agree with that. And but then let's like pull on this thread a little bit more, right? The other thing that you hear is, but if I start to circulate my ideas early,
Mhm.
then everyone's going to have an opinion, and I'm going to have too many cooks in my kitchen, or whatever the other, everyone's got opinions and assholes, and they all stink, or something like that. Um,
Well, I mean, this is an interesting. Now, this is everyone is going to have an opinion.
right.
What's the problem with that?
Exactly. Well, there you go. I
I
think that
guess the problem is
if you allow decision paralysis to kick in, that's a problem.
right. Or I would say, yeah, if it's not clear who has the decision rights on that, like
Right.
I've I've heard all your feedback, and this is what I have. We have a racy or dacy or rapid or whatever matrix we've got, and I am the decider, and I've heard it, and I've decided, and if you don't like it, I guess go talk to my boss or fire me or I don't know what. But like to me, that would be more of a sign of we don't of a different kind of organizational dysfunction, that we don't have clear ownership over those decisions.
Yeah, that could be. That could be. I also think that there's a natural there are, but what I tend to notice in that scenario is it tends to be the person that is reluctant to share ideas, and then they have any number of excuses for why they're reluctant to share their ideas early. It almost always tends to be a insecurity on the part of the person that's reluctant to share,
Hmm.
and that tends to be the root cause. And then we have
It's
to, as leaders, we have to understand, like, where's that, uh is that a justified insecurity? Is there an area that we can actually help you with your skills so that you can become more confident? Is it
yeah,
something where there's been some sort of other thing happen in the culture where you were shut out, or so, like there's, or are you just, possessive and insecure,
Well, you can understand it in our field because, the ideas come out of your brain, and having them criticized can feel like a criticism of my intelligence and my skills, right? Um, my abilities, which could be rough. So I can understand that the other side of the coin is, there's maybe coaching we have to do on, well, how do you give feedback? Saying, hey, you're an idiot because you didn't know that Janet already built this thing. You should have done more research before you put this out there.
Right.
Is very different than, ooh, Brad, I really don't, I'm pretty sure you don't want to duplicate somebody else's work. You would think that isn't a good idea. So you must have not known about Janet's thing. So I'm,
Right.
I'm trying to help you not
Right.
make a mistake.
Right. Right. Right.
That's a cultural thing. There is one thing I've talked about with implementation plans. I don't think it addresses this point directly, but I do talk about how let's fight with the document, not with let's argue with the document, not with each other.
Mm.
So as opposed to like you have an idea and I have an idea and you tell me your idea and then we argue back and forth over whether it's good or bad. I do think sometimes just the fact that it's a piece of paper
Mm-hmm.
and I'm giving feedback to I'm not saying to your face, well, Brad, this is a bad idea. I'm putting it on this piece of paper.
That helps soften
Does
it.
I think sometimes a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I'm not a person who feels insecure about those things, but I would think a little bit. It's like, hey, we are here together working on making this piece
Yep.
of paper as good as possible. It's not me here telling you you're a bad
Well, and
at
I
doing this job.
and I think that, by the way, I think the thing that you just hit on is super important in all cultures like this. Is you just gotta like create a we mentality. You
100%.
gotta have like a shared ownership sense of it. Like, yeah, we're in this together, right? Like if I'm giving you feedback here, it's not because I'm judging you. It's because we're all in this together, and I care about all of this.
I try to use the word uplift a lot. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to uplift what you're doing. I
Right.
talk about uplift our team, our technology, our community. Every action we do as a team should be trying to lift things up.
Yeah.
And hopefully that helps. So I don't know how we got on this implementation plan topic. It's one of my favorite topics.
I think
I want to write a book on it.
I think it's huge. I'm a big fan of it, and I think that it is so interesting to me. Like, I actually hadn't thought about what should we talk about this week, but of the things that were on my mind, one of them was this notion of, you know, I I've seen this in every single team I've ever been a part of, where there's some part of the team that just is kind of has a hard time putting down an implementation plan.
Yeah. So let me, I have a document here. I'm bringing it up. Where did it go? I started, this is like several companies ago. I started saying, hey, everyone must have a peer reviewed implementation plan, not a manager reviewed, a peer reviewed. And we set some guidelines I'm going to bring up here for whether it needed to be written down or not. Because
Right.
sometimes it could just be turning to your neighbor and saying, hey, Brad, I'm planning on making cancellations automated. And what I'm going to do is just get this event and stick it on the bus, and then the cancellation thing will pick it up. And how's that sound to you? And you would be like, oh, that's cool. Sounds good to me. So like that's a review of an implementation. That was verbal. And we wrote a checklist. I'm trying to find it we wrote a checklist for whether you should write it down or not. And of course I can't find it, but
But why not write like here's what I think is interesting. So where this group just landed this week, and we're just starting it this week, so we'll see how it goes, is in our project tracking software, which happens to be Trello. Again, we're a small team working on small stuff. So we use Trello. I'm just like, just write if it's as simple as what you just said, hey, I'm going to hook the cancellation event and add it to the bus. That's great. Write that in the Trello card when you move the Trello card from to do into doing. Just write.
That's fine.
Just write it down.
That's totally fine.
That's like less than 2 sentences. It's simple.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is the checklist was for how formal does the plan need to be. Maybe not written, but how formal. And I'll tell you what was on the list. There are 15 items. I guess I can go through all of them. We got time here. Number one, is it a situation where the requirements are unclear or are in flux?
If so, then write it down.
It says here, like, if you start to check off 2 or 3 of these, maybe you should write it down.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Does it touch an area with many use cases? Or does it touch or change tricky use? Is it a change that is across many use cases? So like maybe I am changing the message bus for the whole system,
Mhm.
or is it, a simple, are you touching a tricky use case, even if there's not
Only
much, like
one.
we were just talking about, I use this cancellation example, that can be really tricky sometimes. This is my favorite one. Is it a user story where reasonable people frequently use the same words to mean different things?
Yeah. That never happens.
No, it never happens, right? Is it a big change? Either lots of code or many parts of the system? Is it a change that involves does it involve a schema change or a data migration? Does it expand our technology footprint by introducing new technologies or infrastructure or third-party integrations? Does it require cross-team coordination to deliver? Number 9 is one of my favorite. Is it a change that is being rushed through urgently?
Yeah.
That's almost always you should write it down, just because it slows things down. This is a good one. This is another good one. Is it a change that seems easy because it's, quote, dusting off some old code that was never committed, but it's just been sitting in a branch? Is it a change that might create hard to see errors? Are there many people dependent on the system or data being changed such that the requirements could have come to you by telephone game? That the classic tire swing thing,
Yeah.
which is like, Brad told me that Janet wanted that, Eric told Janet that Jill told Eric that we need to change this thing.
Yep.
Let's see, that's number 12. This actually is a really good one. Are there multiple stakeholders with competing requirements for a single change? The classic, we're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone with this thing.
Yep.
Yeah, sure you are. Is it a change where you don't know what to do and would like peer input? And is it a change that requires clarification in order to be communicated outside the engineering team? I actually don't know what that means. Requires clarification in order to be communicated outside of the engineering team. I don't know what that means. Anyway, that was the checklist. You notice none of those were really about code, right?
Yeah.
They were about kind of what's the risk of this thing?
Yeah, totally.
Do we need to collaborate on it? I think if I was to, this is an old document, it's got to be 15 years old. I think if I was to add anything to that, it would have to do with like architecture and patterns. Like, are you introducing a new pattern? Are you suggesting a change to a pattern? That kind of thing. Thanks everybody for listening today. We hope you got something out of this. We sure did. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. Smash that subscribe button, pound those 5 stars, and leave the most overflowing, positive, and glorious review that you have ever left for any podcast ever in the history of time. Thanks.
This episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast was edited by Saffron Hefta-Gaub. Our theme song was AI generated by Brad. Please follow us on all the social media platforms at How Many CTOs Pod. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, TikTok, and Patreon, or at our website at howmanyctospod.com. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. Thanks for listening.